A neglectful household, a hospital filled with horrors, painfully traumatic experiences caked with beautiful relationships you've come to treasure. What would overtake you? The beauty of this world, or the pain that it has caused you? Fran Bow and Little Misfortune are undoubtedly games about mental illness, neglect, depression, death, and what comes beyond that. But it's also a game filled with supernatural entities. While it has been discussed for years now if Fran Bow actually had powers or if she was just crazy, now with Little Misfortune, we know that exact answer. Let us dive deep into the 5 realities and the insane worlds of Fran Bow and Little Misfortune. However, to begin to understand the world, we must first understand those who inhabit it, and before we can do that, we need to know the inspirations and what led to their creation. This is Natalia Martinson, founder of Kill Monday Games, alongside with her husband Isaac Martinson. When talking about the inspirations of Fran Bow in an interview hosted by John Walker on Rock Paper Scissors Shotgun, she had this to say. The game itself is kind of screaming out what I've been experienced through my childhood and teenage years. And as a teenager being sentenced to be part of a religious sect, being kind of a guinea pig for research with all medicines doctors gave to me to try to cure the mental illness that life was giving me. There is something else that I want to keep to myself, but that event is the one that actually detonated everything inside my mind. So yes, Fran Bow is a gathering of many events that have been crucial in my life in many ways. I don't want to speak only for myself, but also the others I meet on my way. Because not everything is about painful situations. Beautiful things have happened on my way, and those happy events are those who really helped me battle my mental state. I have to say Fran Bow is purely based on painful and beautiful things that happened to me in my life, and of course it feels very therapeutic. It is the last piece of the puzzle to, in a way, feel free. So yes, Fran Bow was inspired by personal events of their creator, but this was only for Fran Bow. But the two of them are completely different narratives and completely different games. So what was her inspirations for Little Misfortune? Well, during a Q&A, we get this information from Natalia herself.
Misfortune is a Latina, and the inspiration comes mainly from my family, since I myself come from Chile, so you know. And the inspiration for the little girl, for Misfortune, it's a mix based on some little girls that we've been meeting lately, our neighbors, and then a little mix of my own experience when I was a little girl, and how Isaac perceives me somehow. Am I right, Isaac?
Yes. So again, yes, all the inspirations come from Natalia's life experience. Whether that be current relationships or childhood memories, Fran Bow and Little Misfortune share the same inspirations, that being some of the most beautiful and painful experiences of Natalia's life. It wasn't all just personal experience that inspired the likes of Fran Bow and Little Misfortune. Many different literary works also inspired them as well. Alice in the Wonderland, for example, by Lewis Carroll, with its main themes talking about the struggles of self-identity, death, dreams, and reality through the duration of the books. Also, the aesthetic for certain parts of the game in Fran Bow takes heavy inspirations. Just take a look. You see what I mean? The next person that inspired the likes of Fran Bow and Little Misfortune is Edgar Allan Poe. He oftentimes had poems that were described as tales of rationalization, following crimes and mysteries so weird is borderline supernatural. Of course, Little Misfortune and Fran Bow lean into the fact that it's supernatural, but surrounding reality with strange oddities. The next on our list is George Orwell. He wrote a massively influential book called 1984, a warning of the threat of totalitarianism. This being less supernatural and more being of the nature of the fifth reality in both Misfortune and Fran Bow. If you don't know, the fifth reality was absolute evil and indirectly caused the Beyond to exist. We're going to get much more into that later on in this video. The next person on our list is Salvador Dali. He was a famous painter in the 1930s who worked oftentimes screen surrealism and also explored the unconscious and subconscious desires as inspirations. When comparing these depictions of the unconscious mind, it isn't too hard to see where Fran Bow and Little Misfortune's inspirations came from. Both games follow a little girl on a journey through their unconscious mind, seeing a very lucid, dreamy depiction of real-life objects and animals. The next on our list is Franz Kafka, a novelist and a book writer. A common way to characterize his work would be anxiety and alienation. Some of his famous works involve the protagonist facing many insane situations. For example, in one of his books, The Trial, a man is charged for a crime he did not commit, and another book he wrote, The Metamorphosis, a book where the character awakes as an insect. So it sounds a lot like Fran Bow, for example, seeing her parents being killed by a mysterious killer, and Little Misfortune being led by Death himself. You know what I'm now just realizing? I spent this entire time talking about games as if you guys know and have already seen these two. Now obviously, luckily, I already made a detailed video on what I think was going on in Fran Bow. You can totally check that out so that way you can fully understand this video. However, before moving forward in this video, let's deep dive into Little Misfortune and later cross-reference what we learned from the events of Little Misfortune and put it together with Fran Bow. Let's get into it.
Welcome to my game. I'll be your host and humble narrator. The rules of this game are simple. Play it until the end and you'll be rewarded.
That was a signal. You don't tell me how to do stuff. I'm a little late, you know? Hey, we should get some sparkles.
This is Misfortune. She's a wonderful child from a not so wonderful family.
A little sparkle for you, and a little sparkle for you, and a little bit for me.
Oh, the sad part is, today is the day she will die.
Huh. I can hear you, you know.
Oh, you can?
Mm-hmm. Are you inside my head or something?
Well, okay, yes.
Alright, I'll call you Mr. Voice.
In the introduction of the game, we already see familiar sights, such as luciferns and pinecone families. Also, we see a portal being used, similar to the one we've seen Ramor often use. We start off the game with the narrator introducing Misfortune. saying by the end of the game, Misfortune is going to die. Plot twist though, Misfortune seems to be able to hear Mr. Voice. Well, at least that's what she calls him. Looking around her room, we're able to go into her secret hiding spot, which she uses when her parents' arguing gets a bit too loud. It houses a few things such as her teddy bear Bubsy, her diary, and her coloring book. Within her diary, we learned a few things about Misfortune, mainly her huge crush on a fox that she keeps seeing around her house. She decides to call him Benjamin, and another grimmer detail is that Misfortune's dad hits his wife. Misfortune heartbreakingly writes down, "Maybe Daddy can't see he's hurting me too when he hits Mommy." Mr. Voice explains to Misfortune in order to gain internal happiness, she must play their game. Misfortune, wanting to give it to her mommy, decides she'll play the game, knocking over a vase as she makes her way out of the house. Misfortune has to pass through the kitchen to go outside. Her kitchen is disgusting to say the very least. Dead animals in the fridge, food still having bones within the stew, and her mother smoking and drinking wine while daylight is still outside. It's not a good household to be in. Misfortune tells her mother she's leaving, but the mother never even looks our way.
I'm going out to play, Mommy!
Outside, Misfortune shares a few more details. The father seems to sleep in the car, which just adds to the terrible household she lives in. Before crossing the road, Mr. Voice tells Misfortune about one last thing.
So, before we continue, you need to know the rules of the game, Misfortune.
Alright.
Remember, you will be given choices on your journey.
Okay, choices?
There is no right or wrong, only consequences.
Okay. Only consequences.
When Misfortune goes to cross the road to begin her journey, she's then thrusted into a different reality, most likely the fourth reality, something we're going to talk more in depth later. She does in fact make it across the road, and with that, her journey has officially began. Misfortune continues her journey and comes across her first serious choice: to set the dog free or to play with it. And of course, I regretfully choose to play with it. And this happens. Maybe Mr. Voice got the same type of powers. Alright. No! No!
Puppy! What did I do? It's so broken now.
Mr. Voice tells us the owner of the dog is having a birthday party and we should go and apologize. However, upon arriving, there is no party. And unfortunately, George will not be able to receive this apology because he has hung himself. Not long after, Misfortune finds a Stroll doll that has an ominous text written on it. Misfortune doesn't tell Mr. Voice about it, and Mr. Voice can't seem to see it. This will be important much later. After meeting the fox Benjamin, he runs off, and again it seems like Misfortune goes to the fourth reality, but is somehow protected by whatever Benjamin was creating. While continuing forth on the journey to find the eternal happiness, Misfortune finds herself in a cave with a hamster strip club. Yes, I said what I said. A hamster strip club. And don't worry, it gets better. Misfortune mistakes drugs as breath mints and takes them, and of course goes on a trip of her own. When Misfortune awakes, she still needs to find a way out of the cave. As she does, she comes across a hamster lab. Here, Misfortune tells us even more dark lore.
This looks like the science project Daddy has in the basement. I don't know why, but Mommy was really angry about it.
Like, does it just keep getting worse? Not only does the dad hit the mom, and the mom's a chronic alcoholic, and little Misfortune has been in multiple life or death situations, and I can't, it just keeps going, bro. Now the dad has a fucking meth lab in the basement.
Misfortune does in fact get out of the cave, which was connected to the sewers? Maybe? I'm not sure, but what I am sure about is that Misfortune comes across another missing poster and sees a ghostly apparition of a little girl on the poster itself. Later, Misfortune catches up to the fox as he's pasting written notes warning people to look after their children. Then he dashes again. Misfortune finds even more missing poster signs. Later, Misfortune goes to the cemetery and Mr. Voice tells her this is where the eternal happiness lies. And when digging up the grave, she finds a box. Inside has a note saying that the fox stole her happiness. When Misfortune runs after him, she glitches into the fourth reality, falling into a foxhole, and Benjamin ends up running once again.
She's such a mess. Maybe it was a mistake, choosing her for this. I mean, I saw her eating glitter. Who does that? It's not natural. Misfortune, you're alive and well. That's great.
Yeah, where am I? What happened?
The dangerous fox attacked you.
Benjamin attacked me? So he really is a bad fox.
See, I told you. That fox is evil.
Yeah, maybe I should listen to you.
As Misfortune awakes, Mr. Voice tells her she needs to go to the nearby zoo and talk to Benjamin's relative, the wolf. As she makes her way there, she runs by a shop filled with masks. Basically, in this world, people don't want to hide how they feel, so they hide their face. And Misfortune also makes her way past a wall full of missing person posters. Misfortune takes the bus over to the zoo and breaks in using a diversion, passing through many interesting animal pens and doing a little ninja mission. Misfortune obtains the key to the cage of the wolf and gets the location of Benjamin's home. The whole game, Misfortune has always wanted to go to this horror attraction, and since we need a boat to get to Benjamin's house, we kill two birds with one stone, having a blast as we make our way to the boat.
Cat down. Boing. Oops. Sorry.
Woo, almost missed that one.
Oops.
Yes, sir! Yes, sir! We have yet to see the Beyond, but we've seen it, we've heard about it 3 times now. So I wonder why the Beyond is calling out to us and what that could represent. Because it's not a part of the 5 realities.
Once Misfortune is on the boat, she starts yapping, and the deaf guide can't take it anymore and decides to end himself. Yes, I repeat, Misfortune made Deaf himself kill himself.
Uh-oh. Am I gonna get the bad ending because I keep doing shit like this? Is that even possible to get the bad ending? Oh, it's your mom. And you're standing dead?
Finally getting to the island, the monster shows face once again, grasping at Misfortune. This rightfully spooks her as she runs away, bumping into Benjamin's home. Mr. Voice tells Misfortune to go inside and steal the eternal happiness back. However, upon looking inside, we find Benjamin's diary. Within this diary, it explains that Benjamin is from the fourth reality and was sent here as some form of guidance spirit, similar to Itward from Fran Bow. In this diary, he says there are many victims at the hand of someone named Margot, but recently he made one mistake. One of his victims, codenamed Misfortune, can hear him for whatever reason. Another interesting thing he says in the diary is that he has already saved quite a few victims and was gifted the primitive illumination staff. All very strange details, but one damning thing is Mr. Voice is Morgo. Not surprising, but you know, it's nice to be right. I think Misfortune eats something weird again. Enjoy this cutscene, I guess. Now with the truth out of the bag, Misfortune chooses to trust Benjamin and follows him, losing sight of him and taking quite a tumble, yet revolving herself and screaming to the world who she is.
You are the little lady Misfortune.
As she makes it outside, Benjamin is nowhere to be found, but his bag is left scattered on the floor. Here we get some spicy details of the inner workings of the world of Fran Bow and Misfortune. In this document, we learn about the FREE, which stands for 5 Reality Essential Existence. We learn about so many things. Apparently there was an Ultra War, which I believe we heard in Fran Bow, which was the great battle of the 1st and 5th reality. The product of the war created a new reality called the Beyond. Morgo, or Mr. Voice, is actually a parasite that has come from the Beyond into the 3rd reality, also known as Pandora. How they hunt is that they'll lead them through the 4th reality into the Beyond, and then eat them, maybe? I'm actually not sure about that part. The protectors are those who are able to tap into the Ultra reality at will, meaning Itward and Benji are these protectors. Another interesting section is that this is how you know you are infected with a parasite. 1. The victim seems to have forgotten his or her identity. 2. The victim is already dead but doesn't realize it. 3. The victim believes the illusions of the Beyond are real. And 4. The victim sympathizes with the parasite. Misfortune, now understanding what Morgo really is, decides she'll just go home. But while on the train ride back home, Hero, one of Misfortune's friends, tries to warn her, but quickly gets taken away by Morgo himself. Arriving home, things seem to be different. Her home is now destroyed and decaying. Morgo greets her and says that the game isn't finished, trying to loop the day back from the start again. But Misfortune is able to retain her memories and annoys him until he gives in and says he wants to play another game. Knock knock. The game turns creepy very quickly as he terrorizes her.
Knock knock. Who's there?
You're scaring me. Stop it. Leave me alone.
Knock. Who's there? Knock knock. Who's there? Knock knock. Who's there?
Making Misfortune retreat to her secret hiding spot from the beginning of the game. Remember, this is where she would go when her parents began to argue, and it's still present even in the 4th reality.
You silly little child. Another toy for my collection. You're mine to play with for eternity.
I'm sick of you being a bully. You'll see, Benjamin will come back and save me.
No, we made a deal. You crossed the path, and now you're
Leave me
mine.
alone. Benjamin!
How did you get here? There's nothing you can do. She belongs to me.
Benjamin?
No. No!
As Benji defeats Morgo, everything seemingly goes back to normal. As Misfortune looks around, she sees her mother sobbing while talking to an officer. Beyond that lies a dead body. Misfortune's dead body. Misfortune this entire time has already been dead. Hit by her father's car, probably while he was high off what he was selling. Misfortune departs the land of the living, saying goodbye to her mother. She walks through the fourth reality, this time being guided by Benji, as she seemingly enters a better, safer reality. As she leaves for good, she gives her mother that eternal happiness she promised from the beginning of the game. So everything about Little Misfortune is pretty straightforward. Misfortune was already dead the entire time, and Mr. Voice was the pure evil parasite Morgo, doing evil things, abducting children, and doing whatever he was going to do with them, right? The main detail I want to focus on is, when did she exactly die? This simple question holds a lot of finer detail of the game. Trust me. Let's backtrack all the way to the beginning of the game. Specifically when she goes outside her father's car. Look at where the tire marks are. They're the same ones at the end of the game when the big reveal happens. So did she get hit when she initially crossed the road and phased into the fourth reality way back when? Well, many people seem to think so, but I would have to disagree. Mainly because, well, just take a look at the cutscene again. Look at the lighting. It's dark out, indicating it to be either sunset as it gets darker or dawn as the sun just comes out. So when Misfortune first leaves out, and is as bright as day, that just doesn't add up. And to add on, why would the tire tracks already be there if that was the cause of her death in the first place? Well, I think Misfortune died much before the game start. Hey guys, this is post-editing Yuri. I just woke up. I was editing this and I was like, Pass Yuri, you're so wrong, bro. What are you talking? So what I meant to say is that it didn't happen way before the game start. I meant to say that it happened just before the game start. If you look at the fence, you'll see a cast shadow from the sun, and it's the same direction as we saw in the cutscene. And I was just trying to say that it happened earlier that morning, that all of this just transpired. And this isn't her first time living this day and playing Morgo's game. Have you ever wondered why Misfortune had already known Benjamin's name without ever meeting him? Me too. So it got me thinking, why? Morgo is more than capable of restarting the day, as we saw at the end of the game, and playing some form of loop. So it's possible that's why Misfortune had already known Benjamin from prior loops. It would also answer the question as to why Morgo seems to hate Benjamin so much. It's quite possible this isn't the first time Benji actually told Misfortune the truth. Another point I want to add is that this could possibly be the reason as to why Misfortune was able to hear Mr. Voice in the first place. Maybe they looped so many times that he finally messed up after so many attempts. But that's just a guess. I have no way of actually solidifying that. But with this knowledge of Misfortune already being dead way before leaving the house at the beginning of the game, really does paint everything in a much more sorrowful light. What we thought was a neglectful household has now been turned into a broken one. The father is nowhere to be found because he's more than likely arrested for driving under the influence and killing his own daughter. The mother isn't ignoring Misfortune, but instead mourning her, smoking a cigarette and drinking wine to cope, waiting for the cops to show up and take her body away. Benjamin finally ending the loop once and for all, and Misfortune finally giving that long-awaited gift to her mother. All this mayhem was caused by one creature, Morgo. But what exactly is it, and why was it so powerful to control time itself? Before we can get into that, we have quite the checklist before answering that question. First, we need to talk about the 5 realities, what they mean, what they serve, and how Fran Bow and Misfortune paints us the bigger picture of their world. Everybody, get your notebooks ready because this is about to be dense, okay? Gravity collects particles to create new ones. It's a creative force, and with creativity, evolution is inevitable. These are the final words written in a journal by a man named Leon Castillo. In the game Fran Bow, he's thought to have worked alongside Dr. Ozwa, who was the main antagonist of that game. And he worked with him at one point, but begins his spiritual journey through the 5 realities and becomes one of thousands. We'll explain what that means later. This quote above is in reference to Einstein's general relativity, which is, in simple terms, just describes how we perceive what the force of gravity arises from the curvature of space and time.
Is this nigga serious?
Basically, how our world interacts with time and space works similarly to the 5 realities. What are the other realities, however? First, we have Primiv, the reality of pure light, ruled by the king, the great Rouxls, and it's also home to other Rouxls who have achieved purity. The second reality is Estria, the reality of life, growth, and time. Time being especially transient here. Rouxls oftentimes find themselves in the second reality, ever growing until they reach purity, which we did see the process in, Fran Bow. The third reality, Pandora, is basically what we call Earth. The name also is in reference to the mythology Pandora, as they opened up Pandora's box, and that was the origin of all human pain and loss of innocence, but also hope. This makes sense considering the third reality is the melting pot for the 3 realms, the second, third, and fourth, which basically translates to time, logic, and death. Now speaking about death, the fourth reality is Sinner City, Don't look at me that way. I know, I'm butchering all the names. Sinner City is the reality of death, capable of bringing souls to the second reality, as we saw with Fran Bow, but also in Misfortune, we see the tormented children also being directed into the beyond as well. Another fun fact, it actually also houses Edward and Benji, which they originate from the fourth reality, and they both seem to be this external force to protect tormented children. And of course, fifth is Obscura. I could say that one, bitch. The fifth reality is the realm of darkness, ruled by Mother Mabuka and her son Ramor, two people we meet and are all too familiar with in Fran Bow. This realm is responsible for the existence of Kamalas. If vocalists thrive off of growth in time, Kamalas exist in all human weaknesses and pain. This is when things get a little bit tricky to explain. The realms are all layered upon each other, different spaces paralleling at the same time, and within Ultra Reality, you are able to interact and see all of the same layers all at the same time. I mentioned something earlier about Kamalas using the third reality as a hunting ground, and this is possibly due to the Ultra Reality. Another example of this is the mechanic of Fran Bow. When she would take her duotine, she'd be able to grab needles from the fifth reality, place a key holder in a different reality, only for it to appear in the third reality, or she's even able to find discarded twins' fates, even though in the third reality that very well is completely boarded shut, so on and so forth. When it comes to Little Misfortune and Fran Bow, as I said earlier, the Ultra Reality can be a little confusing even if I explain it. So in courtesy of my girlfriend, I stole her whiteboard, and I also stole her expo markers. Shh, she doesn't need to know. With this whiteboard, I was hoping to visualize what exactly I meant by the layers of realms overlapping over one another, and I also wanted to deep dive on a bit of a tangent in terms of how I think there are some rules that Fran Bow's universe still needs to follow. So for example, right? This is the beautiful Venn diagram that I came up with. And as I said, the Ultra Reality makes everything overlap. So you have the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth reality. They're all in unison, right? However, you will notice that I have put these two on the ends. So that's the first and that's the fifth reality. And the melting pot is the third, second, and fourth reality. Hold on, let me actually get something. So earlier, I actually mentioned something about the Kamalas going out of their way and using Pandora, which is the third reality, as their hunting ground. The reason why I came to this conclusion is because in Fran Bow, when you remember going to the second reality, you know what was there, right? It was Kamalas. Kamalas were also there. So I figured that the fifth reality, they could use the Ultra Reality, right? And they could go between all these things. However, we've never seen anything from the fifth reality overlap with anything in the third reality or second reality. And we've never seen the first reality from the fourth or third reality. Because, and I believe, this is just a personal theory, but I believe that there is some form of rule where, in reference to the second reality, what I was going to say is that in Palatron's story, we hear that the king was fighting in the first reality and quote unquote fell into the second reality, falling into the pond and bleeding it to it, making it the most purest water of all the realms. You kind of need to go to the second reality to get to the first, or you need to get to the fourth reality to get to the fifth. My theory for that being mostly from Little Misfortune, because I always ask that question as to why couldn't, the parasite just go from the third reality and then just take him from the beyond. It almost seemed as if they needed, or Morgo needed to take them to the fourth reality to then go to the fifth reality. Speaking about the beyond, how did it come to be? Well, for this question, we'll need to revisit Little Misfortune and take a look at Benji's rulebook. In this book, we find out that the organization called FREE, which stands for 5 Reality Essential Existence, explain due to the Great War between the first and fifth realities. After the war concluded, a byproduct of the war was created, and it was something called the Beyond. A place where all previous knowledge of the 5 realities go straight out the window. Time, space, and logic seem to be lacking in this place, and it's also home to creatures known as parasites. Creatures from the Beyond who seemingly are able to control time and space at will due to the deconstruction of reality's logic. And you know who else is able to control time and space? That's right, the Prince of Darkness, Grimoire. And a common way to describe the fifth reality to humans would be a place seemingly lacking of all logic. Now this is just a theory, so take it with a grain of salt. But in Benji's rulebook, it states that the FREE don't even know what the Beyond is exactly. Well, in personal belief, going back to Einstein's general relativity, gravity collects particles to create new ones. It's a creative force. With creativity, evolution is inevitable. This statement leads me to believe that Mother Babuka's darkness simply evolved once again. I mean, the similarities between Kamalas and parasites are pretty tight. Kamalas work a lot like curses in Jujutsu Kaisen, where they are born from the human's negativity and feeds on that very same emotion until the humans end. While parasites like Morgo seems to only go after sad or broken children like in Misfortune, or like Misfortune. Maybe it's because they too also feed on tormented souls and tormented emotions. With all this knowledge in mind, let's revisit Fran Bow. Let's see how my lobotomy theory holds up. Personally, I think it holds quite well. One major thing I always questioned was, why were Fran Bow and Misfortune's journeys so drastically different? I think it's because in one game, the journey to the afterlife and other realities is a lot more traditional. So things are cut and dry. While Fran Bow, there are so many outside sources that influence her mind. So things that she is seeing could very well be true, but due to the endless suffering, mind-altering drugs, and the duotine awakening her third eye, so to speak, things get a bit skewed. It's also the fact that Fran Bow is actually one of thousands, just as Leon is. In his diary, Leon states, in order to tap into the vision of ultra reality, one must suffer greatly. So in Fran's case, not only was she gifted the vision of ultra reality, was given medication to alter her mind, grow up in a horrifying environment, being put in a weird state of limbo, and undergo brain altering surgery, her experience was unique to say the very least. I think I alluded to this fact in the Fran Bow video, but I do think Misfortune backs up this claim quite well. We all know Misfortune was dead the entire game. However, her soul was more than capable of moving from the house and even going into different realities. Well, just the fourth reality, but you understand what I mean. So if someone like Misfortune, who doesn't have the sight of ultra reality, can do it, I'm inclined to believe that Fran Bow, who was heavily sedated, could move from reality to reality while her physical body remained in Pandora. Now, I'm gonna go off script a little bit because apparently I just read my script and it's my conclusion of the whole video, but I have so much more that I want to talk about. When talking about Fran Bow, you go to the second reality, the third reality, and the fifth reality. And then in Misfortune, you go to the third reality and the fourth reality. It's still pretty unknown about the first reality. Doesn't seem like anyone can just go there. But there are little hints that is still very much a power in the universe at hand. Because Benji only defeats Morgo due to having a primitive illumination wand staff. I'm actually not sure what that's called, but it was just kind of a cool nod. The whole thing about Mr. Midnight and Fran Bow, people were trying to understand if Mr. Midnight was just a fabrication, or if Fran Bow really did do this, or if he was somehow from the fourth reality and came to, in a way, guide Fran Bow, just like how Misfortune had Benji, and I'm gonna have to disagree. I think Fran Bow is one of 1,000, right? And what does that even mean? I keep saying that. Well, it's pretty heavily implied that most creatures have ultra reality. That's why they're able to kind of just understand it. Itward can understand it, Benji can understand it, and all the Kamalas or more can understand it. But humans, it seems to be few and far between. And I think the one, the one of 1,000 just means that there may be just 1,000 humans in the entire world who can actually tap into the ultra reality. And you know who can do that, right? Fran Bow. Fran Bow is one of 1,000. And so I believe Fran Bow is somewhat a prodigy when it comes to these type of things. When we look at Leon Castillo in his diary, it took him so very long to do a lot of the things that Fran Bow did in days. You know, she was so in tune with herself and so in tune with everything else that it kind of just clicked for her. She did things without even realizing she did those things. When she fell off that bridge from like the end of chapter 2 and into chapter 3, apparently she did die physically. However, she forcefully took her soul out and put it into a tree. Who does that? Fran Bow, because she's the chosen one, of course. And so obviously in my personal theory, I said that when she was sedated, that's how she felt. And I still wholeheartedly believe this. But if I throw out my theory and I just think that everything that happened to Fran Bow was 100% real, which I don't, but if it were, she's a fucking prodigy. She she went to the second reality. She learned about the third reality. She went to the fourth reality for a second there, and went to the fifth reality. She did a lot of things. Fran Bow is powerful. She is powerful. I think she manifested Mr. Midnight to be somewhat of a sentient being, all on her own power. I think her love for her pet, for Mr. Midnight, was enough for her to manifest a sentient spiritual being, just how she wanted to cling on to life so dearly that she transferred her soul into a branch. I think she's just powerful enough to do that stuff. When learning about Fran Bow and Little Misfortune, it's quite easy to get enthralled in the world itself and the creatures and the lore of the other realities. It's definitely something that's just amazing and interesting to learn about. But when you pull the curtains back and you leave the theatrics out of it, it's just a game about mental illness, neglect, trauma, depression, sadness. But it's also a beautiful story of acceptance, enlightenment, growth, self-betterment, family. When Natalia created this story, the baseline was simply her own experiences. In her words, Fran Bow is a game about her beautiful and painful memories. So yes, while monsters are great to learn about, and yes, the 5 reality lore goes hella deep, at the end of the day, what the game is trying to show you, what the games are trying to show you, is a story of perseverance and growth, mentally, physically, spiritually. There is nothing in life that can be done solely by yourself. There is nothing wrong with the helping hand. Yes, life will be painful. Yes, life will be unfair. And yes, there will be days that you just do not want to get up. But when you play Little Misfortune and when you play Fran Bow, it's not just you against the world. It's you and your family facing the brutal reality of this world together. So, thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you for creating such a beautiful, beautiful game.